It's one of India's oldest business houses, and even today, this name resonates with millions of people who use one or the other Godrej product each day. So how has Godrej managed to stay relevant through the decades and through various phases of India's economy? And how crucial has innovation been to its success? I caught up with Group Chairman R.D. Godrej to find out.
I think innovation has been a very strong force in our group. In the early years, the innovation was to produce products in India that could compete with British imports. Because at that time, almost all consumer products into India used to be imported. Very little was manufactured here. So we were the first, for example, to make locks in India. We were the first to make soap from vegetable oils, which was the main source of raw material in India. We were the first to make refrigerators in India. We were the first to make typewriters in India. We don't even make typewriters anymore, but that was an innovation at that time. So almost all the businesses we have gone into, consumer businesses, about 600 million Indians use one or the other of our products every day. So they have arisen out of innovation, out of new ideas. They may not be innovations in the global term that it was never done anywhere, but it was certainly very strong innovations from India. Now we are very strongly focused on what we might call innovations at the bottom of the pyramid.
Sure.
That means new products that are affordable and that people who do not use these products would be able to use them because they would come within their budgets. So that's a huge scope for increase in consumption in India. There are only 3 packaged branded consumer products which are consumed by everybody in India. That's soaps, detergents and matchsticks. Everything else is underpenetrated because of affordability. So innovation in that area can add tremendously to consumption, which could then add to GDP growth and would enable us to take these ideas and these products to other low-income geographies.
That's wonderful, sir, but I'm going to go a little linear in the history of Godrej and go back a little. If the innovation to start off with was to make indigenously made products, what are the challenges at that point? And when you came into the company in the 60s, for instance, what was it that you found? What was the market environment like?
So the challenges was because under British rule, Indian companies were not encouraged. Indian manufacturing business was not encouraged. So you had to push that much harder to be successful, and that much harder in terms of innovation, in terms of competitiveness, etc. And sometimes the innovation was not even appreciated because there was not an opportunity for the consumer to realize the benefits of the innovation. I'll give you an example. My grandfather started making a patented safe where he put an exothermic chemical between the 2 walls of the safe, so that if there was a fire, the chemical would give out water and protect the contents of the safe. And in the beginning, British safes were ruling the market. Then during the wartime, there was a big explosion in the Bombay docks. There was a big fire in the fort area of Bombay, and all the contents of our safes were perfectly all right. And in many British safes, the contents were destroyed. After that, our sales picked up. Today, we are by far the leaders in security equipment in the country, whether it is safes or bank vaults. So this innovation paid great dividends, but it needed this accident to happen before everybody realized that Indian products could in fact be better than British products. So such innovations have helped us get ahead.
If innovation was at the core of Godrej's start, the decades that followed through Free India and an increasingly closed economy saw the company having to fight a tough battle. Competition from MNCs and the inability to really scale up forced the company to look at the back end and costs. This, Godrej says, also proved to be a boon later. In 1991, as the economy opened up, Godrej embraced change, and the first step was tie up with some of the biggest companies in the world.
I think we learnt a lot from our joint ventures. We had joint ventures with some of the greatest companies in the world who had tremendous emphasis on things like R&D, marketing, human resources policies, etc. We learnt a lot, and now we have almost none of those joint ventures continuing. We bought out our partners in most cases. In some cases, we have sold our business to our partner in our food business, for example, to Hershey's. But generally, we learned tremendously from these joint ventures, and it helped improve our businesses. And we've implemented these learnings very strongly, not just in the business where we had the joint venture, but across our businesses. Let me just give you a few great examples. With P&G, a lot of people think P&G is a great marketing company. Of course, it's a great marketing company, but really it's a very strong R&D company. The R&D in consumer products has been matchless. They've done extremely well, and we learnt a lot about R&D and market research from the P&G joint venture, which we have implemented thereafter with great success. For example, learning about consumers. We never visited consumer homes until our P&G joint venture. Now we visit consumer homes all the time to learn from the consumer at the place of consumption. I'll just give you one example. With GE is a great company in human resource development. They've developed some of the greatest managers who are heads of several of the large companies globally after having a career in GE. We learned tremendous HR practices. Just for example, 360-degree evaluation. They were the pioneers of that. We have used it for the last almost 20 years since we had our GE joint venture, where every manager goes through an evaluation, an anonymous evaluation by superiors, peers, and subordinates, and in some cases even by customers. And that is used only for self-improvement. It is not used for increments or other things. That has helped us improve our human resources tremendously. I, for example, when I first underwent this 360-degree evaluation, benefited tremendously. There are things about myself.
Even the chairman
yes,
is not,
I go through
it
even now.
Yeah?
Every year I am evaluated on a 360-degree basis.
Over the last 2 decades, Godrej has spread its wings across markets and categories. How is innovation different in the new as compared to the old? Find out when we return. Godrej Consumer Products offers an interesting array of the old and new. Over the last decade, new segments like hair color, home insecticides, and a plethora of regional brands across geographies have driven growth. But at the same time, old brands like Synthol, which have been around for over 6 decades, have remained. So what has worked for these products, and how does the company innovate to keep them relevant?
So clearly, your products have to keep changing, and the brand should mean more to the consumer than it meant earlier. The brand, if it continues to enjoy the trust of the consumer, has great value. So when you bring something new in that brand, consumer immediately wants to try it. So always keep improving the product, especially from a consumer point of view. Understand what the consumer needs. What the consumer needed 60 years ago may not be what the consumer needs today. So improve the product, get the brand sometimes extended to other similar products. So for example, Synthol started as a deodorant soap, and now we've taken it to deodorant talcum powders, deodorant sprays, deodorant hand washes, etc., etc. So that way we keep the brand contemporary. We had a new campaign in Synthol recently which upgraded its appeal to the youth, because the original Synthol consumers are the grandparents today.
If the focus was on how to keep its core brands fresh, this company has also aggressively looked at new markets. Godrej Consumer Products made its first overseas acquisition in 2005, and this has been followed by a series of others. But at a time when most companies were trying to go deeper into India and tap the huge rural market here, why did Godrej choose to go out instead?
We've done both around the same time. Actually, we started going deep into India a little earlier. So clearly, until about 15 years ago, in most of rural India, people could barely keep body and soul together. So their incomes for discretionary spends were quite low. Then around 15, 20 years ago, as the economy opened up with the reforms, rural incomes started rising and discretionary expenditure started rising very rapidly. So even today, discretionary expenditure is rising by around 20% per annum after what you use just for keeping body and soul together. So rural growth is very strong, and products which rarely had rural demand have strong rural demand now, and I think rural growth will continue to add to consumer spending in India. So clearly that opened up 15 years ago and we took part in it. Internationally, we have expanded mainly in Godrej consumer products, which is our FMCG business.
Yeah.
This business has always run on negative working capital in India. So we throw up a lot of capital, which we used to give out very large dividends. We did 10 buybacks. Then we realized that we have similar markets in other parts of the developing world, and we have developed good technology. Let's take it outside. And then we started acquiring significant sized businesses in the developing world. And we have scale and size in some of these countries. So our per capita sales of FMCG products now in Indonesia, South Africa, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay are higher than in India. And earlier we thought we would take our innovations to these countries, including our business process innovations, which we have done successfully. But we have also found that some of the innovations these companies had have very good relevance to India, and we have brought those to India.
So what are the cross learnings, sir? What is unique about the Indian way of management that can add value over there? And is it process driven, the innovation that you've done over here, which you've taken over there, or is it product driven?
Both business processes and products. But what we have leveraged is the strong brands in each geography. So for example, we are leaders. We are the largest company in powder hair colors in the world. We are now leaders in hair colors overall in over 20 countries. And our African hair color business is very strong. We are leaders in about 14 countries in Africa. But we could take our powder hair color technology to Africa in the African brand, Inecto, which is very strong in Africa. But we manufacture it in India and send it to Africa very successfully. Similarly, in Indonesia, we had developed, the company we acquired had developed a very good technology, household insecticide technology, which is a small card which you burn on a saucer for 3 minutes and makes the room mosquito free for several hours. This is very inexpensive, very successful. It has been extremely successful in Indonesia. Now we brought it to India very successfully, and we underestimated the demand in India. We are short supplied currently. So these are technologies which help the consumer, which penetrate the market very successfully. So it works both ways.